Oh, what do we have here? Another episode of the Gaming Memories Podcast, Satan's tool to defect you away from the path. Actually, I am the path because, as many of you know, I was commissioned by the Gaming Triforce, the Holy Triforce of gods themselves, Miyamoto the Father, Kojima the Son, and Carmack, the Holy Ghost, to create the one true gaming podcast simply by interviewing creative and interesting people about their favorite gaming memories growing up. And on this episode of the podcast, I am Santi Fox. Santi Fox, the Finnish Minish Cap, Zelda Minish Cap, the Finnish man, sexy young man. I say no homo, but homeboy's good looking as most Finnish people are. He says he doesn't have any Viking genes, but there's probably some Viking forcible intercourse in his DNA lineage. He comes from Finland. He is the global art director of K-Swiss, the shoe company, aka he's got dope style. He does a bunch of artistic shit. Handles, if you think anything about K-Swiss is dope, probably funnels back to him. He was also the project lead on the first esports gaming shoe, which I talked about with Omar Prestwich in a previous episode, who is the social media manager of K-Swiss and the one who so graciously connected me with Santi Fox. He spearheaded the first gaming shoe, which is pretty badass. It's unfortunately sold out at the moment, but they should do another run. It's super dope. He is big into esports, has been heavily involved in the Counter-Strike scene on the brand side as a brand ambassador, working with a bunch of mouse, keyboard, and other gaming paraphernalia companies until he reached his specific occupation at K-Swiss as the global art director. He's a very accomplished photographer, an all-around badass dude. He grew up gaming in Finland, which gives us I thought, a pretty unique look at sort of in Europe what type of games and what things that, how should I say, a lot of things were similar to what pop culture is in America during the same time frame. He was born a little bit later than me. He's a little bit younger, but grew up basically in the same era of gaming: NES, Super Nintendo, Genesis, PS1, PS2, so on and so forth. But he grew up in Finland, and things were a little bit different there. And so that European flavor gets into a lot of the games that we talk about, a lot of the games that impacted him growing up, many which you will recognize and many which you won't. I found it a very interesting podcast. He is a bona fide badass. I only have badasses on the podcast because I am led by revelation from the gaming gods themselves, and they tell me who to bring on the podcast, which basically means I can't have a bad guest. They've all been approved by the gaming gods themselves. They are doctrine, they are canon, they are Bible. Listen to them. Their gaming opinions supersede yours, as does mine. Don't form your own opinion. I am the prophet. Listen to me. Give me your money. Give me your women. Follow I am Santi Fox on Instagram, Twitter, all of those things. Make sure to give him a like, a follow, a comment. He's single, ladies. Slide into his DMs should you feel so inclined. I say these things in the name of the Holy Triforce of gaming gods themselves, Miyamoto the Father, Kojima the Son, and Carmack the Holy Ghost. Enjoy the show. Bye-bye.
Man, I'm so excited to be on this. I've been waiting on this for a while, ever since I heard my first episode, which happened to be Omar's. I'm like, oh shit, this is something I want to do. So thanks for having me on.
I know you through Omar. For people who don't know, which is basically everybody, give us your gaming street cred. Why should we care about what you gamed growing up? Are you legit?
Oh shit.
Are you legit or what?
Okay, well, you want to start with the first or the second wave of esports and gaming in my life?
Let's separate it. Well, do you do mainly esports and multiplayer games? Is that like your bread and butter?
So I play esports, or let's say this. I'm a hobbyist now. The furthest I've ever gotten with any esport was Counter-Strike, and that was very, very amateur. And going towards wanting to do something that could resemble semi-pro back then, and that's kind of it. So I've been on the brand side of things since I was 16. I started working for a mouse pad company, and that was that was the first jump of, oh shit, I'm not going to be a player. I'm not that good of a gamer, so I'm going to jump. I want to be involved, and it's something that's really, really important. But I'm not going to be a pro player. I'm not that good.
Sweet. Well, that's actually a great intro. I have a couple. I'm really curious about sort of the grind, the path that it takes to become a pro gamer. I've had a guy on who described himself as a semi-pro Street Fighter player. And he kind of went into the grind. You said that you were like a pretty good amateur. So, and analogous, would you say like a really good high school athlete or maybe college athlete at the Counter-Strike level? How would you rate yourself where you peaked?
I would say definitely less than that. I would not put myself that high up.
Okay.
I feel like for some reason, I became friends with some of the pros, and that was, I guess, the highest I got to do is play with people that were really good. I was never that good.
I think my guess is you're probably being a little bit, what's the word, humble, because if you played with guys...
Not even close. No. This is
Listen.
straight up, I sucked.
Okay, that's because you were playing with super good dudes, it sounds like. But you are the average. Usually your skill level at any given thing, and I think with the game, this whole is pretty true. My guess is it's like the average of the hours put in times by the average level of the people you play with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you're playing with dudes who are really good. You're probably really good, but compared to the pros, you just feel like you suck. But I bet that if we got a bunch of homies together, people who played who are good at other FPSs, and we played Counter-Strike, you'd probably fuck us all up. Let's be real.
I think I'd compete with the top 3 players of that friend group for sure. Like I can do that, but
definitely. Well, that's how
I see your point.
Yeah. You're probably really good. To a layman, you're probably really good.
Yes, for a pro, I'm a beginner.
For your pro, you're a beginner.
I played against a couple of pros in one-on-one situations, and it's always the same. You have absolute no chance. You have no chance.
No chance.
But it's the same.
Yeah.
I played football for 26 years, and I think I'm pretty good. But when I'm on the field with someone who's a pro, it's not even the same sport really. They're just so much better.
That's how in any skill that I've gone down the rabbit hole with, I put a lot of hours into drumming. I put a lot of hours into jiu-jitsu. Put a lot of hours actually into soccer. Was part of the first thing I got into.
Nice.
But it's the same thing. I would say not even pro. Anytime, say with jiu-jitsu, I roll with someone who's really good, maybe at a regional level. Mm-hmm. They're not even. I would say amateur. They're just a really good local guy, and I feel like, man, yeah, there's an infinite space between you and me. So then I can extract.
I wish I could go back to that.
Yeah,
to jiu-jitsu. I haven't been in jiu-jitsu for a long time. My shoulders can't take it anymore. I miss that though.
It's fun. I think gaming scratches the same itch in a sort of way.
Yeah,
I think that I really enjoy Smash Brothers. I describe myself the same way as Smash Brothers as you. I've been to a few tournaments, and I do okay at local tournaments, really local tournaments. But and anytime homies get together and play Smash and are drinking, I convince everyone. I talk a bunch of shit, and I convince everyone to throw money down because I know, compared to the average person, I'm gonna just murder them at Smash. Right, unless they're a Smash player.
You would kick my ass.
Unless you're a Smash player.
I organized the game night and had Super Smash, and then a friend of mine's boyfriend showed up, and he was good. He kicked everybody's ass. But I knew I've always been really bad at fighting games. But one of my favorite games ever is Super Smash on Nintendo 64. And yeah, I was in elementary school, I think on 5th or 6th grade in Finland.
Wait. Finland?
Yeah, so
what are you doing here?
I'm born and raised in Helsinki, Finland.
Dude, that's supposed to be way cooler than America. Why are you here?
Well, my dad's American, so I got a passport, and I'm a citizen. I'm a full American in that sense. And I made a promise to myself when I was 20 that once I turn 25, before then I need to live in America because I want to see how life is halfway through. And so then at 23, I quit my job and jumped on a plane and moved to America.
Wow.
And I've been here Yeah, 2012 is when I came, so it's been 7.5 years.
How can what's give me the Reader's Digest version of how you feel Finland compares to America. Pros of each and cons of each.
I mean, America, like the U.S. is big. Looking at the U.S. It's almost the same as looking at Europe. You have all the states are all the European countries. It's the same thing, kind of.
That makes sense.
And the EU has their own rules, and the US has federal rules and or laws, so kind of the same. And then the states, so vice versa, the countries have their own. So that's similar. I've only lived in California, and so the weather is better, but you lose the four seasons. And so unless you were in Northern California, like if you're somewhere at Tahoe, it'll be like Finland, kind of. You know, you have all full four seasons, and it looks great, and clean air and all that. So I think the biggest difference is just the cleanliness of things. In a city like LA, it gets really dirty. The air isn't good, and now it's great. But normally the air is bad quality, and the streets aren't that clean. And there's just so many people that you can't, or they haven't built the infrastructure to really keep it nice and clean, like a Korean city or like a Nordic city.
Okay, now my next question is: are you gonna stay in America or go back?
After completing that dream of moving here before 25, right? The next one I think has become or has been that I want to be half and half. If I could spend summers in Finland and then the rest of the year here, that would be great. That's what I'd like to do.
That's a good move. I know a lot of people who are my age and even all the way up to people who are older, like senior citizens, that do some sort of half and half schedule. They usually avoiding the winter months of a location.
Yeah,
and a lot of people
I do miss
that.
winter though. Like I really miss winters, but then again, where I live in Finland or lived, they're having winter now. Like it's snowing in April.
Yeah.
Like, what? That's not what I grew up with. We used to have winter was in December.
What year were you born in?
89.
89. Okay, so you're a little bit younger. My guess is you were in Finland. Was the Nintendo the first video game shit you played?
The first platform I'm having a hard time. I was thinking about this like a lot. It's either the original gray Game Boy, or or Super Mario Brothers on Nintendo. But I don't know. I can't remember. I think Super Mario Brothers was first, and then I got into Kirby on Game Boy.
On Game Boy. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was Kirby's Dream Land.
Yes.
Yeah.
I played that game too.
Man, I loved Kirby. Kirby's just so dope. I always loved Kirby.
Yeah, that's the only Kirby game I've played, and I played it around. I'm a little bit older than you, but around a similar time on the Game Boy.
Yeah,
and I remember loving that game. That's good shit.
Pokemon Red was, I think, my biggest game that just completely altered my interests in life. That was the first time where I had my Game Boy with me everywhere. Just collecting all the Pokemon and seeing some of the cartoons. I think on British TV in Spain, because I don't think Finland didn't show Pokemon back then. We got it maybe 2 years later than when it launched in America. So I think I saw it earlier, and then I must have gotten a pack of cards from someone, and then I had the game, and that changed everything. And from then on, I think I started doing. I was heavily playing with the gaming cards. I never got into Magic, so I was just attending tournaments with my decks. And we had a Pokemon League where you would get each badge, and you had to go. I think it was every Saturday. You had to go. I think it was every Saturday. You had to go to this place called Fantasy Games, and you'd have maybe 20, 30 people there playing each other, and then the gym master for the badge.
Nice. So you went deep down the Pokemon rabbit hole.
Yeah. And I was
you went in hard, baby.
12, 13. So Game Boy, and Pokemon trading cards. I still have the ARCs at my mom's house, I think.
Nice. I went pretty hard on the Game Boy games, but I never got into the cards. Mm-hmm. I did get into Magic a little bit, mainly at the time because there wasn't the internet, so access to really cool artwork wasn't as prevalent other than comic books. So I would buy Magic cards a lot of time and not even play and just look at the artwork.
I really liked how Magic cards looked. I think I saw them and then I got curious about them maybe later when I was 16, 17.
Yeah.
I'd see some friends play with them, and I think it wasn't a thing that I was interested in when I was younger, like 12, 11, 13. It just didn't hit. And then I think a little bit later on, because Magic is a little bit more complicated, and
Definitely.
I feel like...
Well, I don't know. I've never played the Pokemon trade. I don't know how complicated the trading card game is. I have no idea.
I don't think it's as strategic as Magic. I mean, I guess it is, but I think Magic requires you to be a little bit older.
What else were you gaming? So I'm interested because Finland, yeah, so you're basically like European releases, so you're used to getting things generally later than the US gets them.
The first console I had at home, I think I was playing on PC. So my uncle was working at a company and I think they were getting rid of their old ones. So I got a PC from them with, I think, Windows 3.11. And I think on 3.11, you could already play Commander Keen and Wacky Wheels. And that was the games I played. They're 2D jumper and a racing game. So a predecessor for Mario Kart.
Yes, I was going to say, I've heard of Wacky Wheels. Commander Keen.
Wacky Wheels is amazing.
Yeah, and I think I've read an article that it's considered the spiritual precursor to Mario Kart.
Yeah, it's exactly the same. You had these different animals, a lion and a shark, and all these animals.
Oh my god, it is race. Mario Kart.
It's just amazing. I love those maps, and you had all the bombs, the weapons, and all of that, and I would just put endless hours into that game. And
did this come out? But are you sure this came out before Mario Kart?
Oh yeah.
I mean, I believe you. I'm just like, wow, I didn't realize Nintendo's biggest franchise was a straight rip-off.
I would Google it, but my mechanical keyboard is so loud that I won't.
We don't want to hear your clacking. Let's go. Wacky Wheels.
I remember that those games, you had to install them with discs, and I doubt that a lot of people know what diskettes looks like. And you would just have a bunch of discs you would put into the PC and install games through them. And installing, I think Windows 95 took 20 or 40 discs to get it installed. It was ridiculous.
I do remember that. Well,
yeah, it took forever. Like it could take hours and hours.
Yes. So. And I also remember at least on my old PC, but you had Windows, I guess. But on the DOS games, you had to execute. You had to type everything perfectly, and it was such a pain in the ass.
I think Wacky Wheels might have been one of those games that you actually had to run through DIR or no.
You had to type in C:, execute games / Wacky Wheels, whatever. At the time, it was so confusing. Yeah. God damn it.
I mean, you can still do that from your Windows. Just Windows key R. It'll bring up the same kind of thing. But
I found the release date.
All right.
Verdict is you're wrong, bro. 94 Wacky Wheels, 92 Mario Kart. The reason I asked.
No shit.
Yeah, I was like,
wow.
It would have been sexier if you were right. That's why I was hoping you were right, because then we could have talked about how Nintendo just stole the idea for one of their biggest IPs, and that's very common. There's a lot of thievery going on, but this is not one of those cases. Unfortunately,
I'm sure someone actually went and changed history. So,
hey, apparently, have you heard the conspiracy theory that when they turned on the Large Hadron Collider, where they spin atoms and make them run into each other and study them, that there's like this kid, I think it was like half a joke, but also like he basically said that when we first turned that on, it actually put a split in the universe, and we're in like the wacky universe, like the alternate universe. Ever since 2006 or 4, whenever they first turned that thing on, and that's why everything's been so weird. And it's just a joke, but he like lists all the weird, crazy facts about the world since that time. Anyway, could be maybe someone's rewriting history in the real. Maybe you originally were in the real timeline and you remember the original memory, but now you're in the alternate bizarro world.
I hope that a version of one of us travels in time, comes back through a portal just to fix something from happening, and then everything will be okay. Like, we'll just be in an okay timeline. So, I don't know.
Yes, someone needs to do the Infinity War thing and, like, return all the things to the, like, right moment and flow. And just... Someone needs to make everything okay. All right, guys, we're stressed out.
Yep, exactly.
Luckily,
we have video games.
Yeah, so are you playing a lot of games in quarantine? You're working from home, right? K-Swiss, just for people who don't know, this is, Omar was on episode, 10. He was the social media guy behind K-Swiss. What's your position at K-Swiss?
I am the global art director. So I've been there for 2.5 years now.
Nice.
And I do everything with our web design, actually making the websites as well, our email marketing, our photo campaigns. I'll either shoot or be art directing the retouches or retouch them, or work with our team to bring their visions to life. And so I try to have my hand in pretty much everything that goes on in the company, less so with product. And there's only been one product that I've been heavily involved in, and that is the world's first eSport sneaker.
Okay, yeah, we know more. We talked about that, yeah. Is that
so that was my baby of a project that me and a friend of mine, Indy, who also worked K-Swiss then, we kind of championed it in and got it done. And we had some help from Lionsgate and then from Immortals, and we got a shoe done.
Dude, so how was cool. You're smiling so genuinely. Is that kind of like your baby? Was that shoe your baby?
I was putting a lot of time and effort into it, and then I was given the opportunity to be the project manager in-house for it. So when we're launching something, there's always someone who's in charge of the complete project.
Yeah,
and
ultimate
make sure that
responsibility falls on.
Yeah. And so I got to do that. But the weird thing is that normally, if let's say Omar's the project manager, he'll make sure things happen, and sure, he'll actually run it on social, but he won't necessarily do all the assets. But then for the esports shoe, I'm the project manager, and I made all the assets as well. And I got to hire one of my mentors to do the 3D part for it as well. So I got to kind of bring my own family kind of into the project, also, and specifically bringing Finnish people on board to work on projects. And it was just really, really, really fun to do, and I was so happy to get the level of trust from the company that, okay, you get to do this, and we trust that you're going to do it well.
Nice. And from what I understand, what Omar was saying, you guys are sold out super fast, right?
Yeah, it sold out immediately, and I know that there's a lot of Brazilian fans that were a little bit sad. They really wanted a lot more. They just wanted more, and we need to get more distribution in Brazil to actually do that. And so the shoe ended up being a made in Brazil shoe for a Counter-Strike team. And so
sick. So you guys got like officially, I didn't know that. Was that happen after the podcast with Omar? I don't remember him saying that.
I don't remember. So originally we were trying to do an Overwatch themed shoe for the LA Valiant. But as you know, the league is the league. It's a franchise league, and they have their rights. And so we couldn't do a shoe for that. And then we still wanted to work with the same people. And we looked at they had recently bought a Counter-Strike team, and it so happens that Made in Brazil is one of the original legendary Counter-Strike teams from, I think, 2012, 2, 9, 8, something like that. Early Counter-Strike, 1.4, I think. And so they were really, really good, and they played for SK Gaming, and I think they have the most major wins ever. I'm not sure. Fact check that, but they're really good, and so it was fun to get to work with get a product that has a brand like made in Brazil.
Are you guys planning on doing any more releases of that shoe?
I really hope so. I'm not. I don't work that much with product, and so everything comes down to in stuff like that. It comes down to what are the agreements, the contracts, and who can you work with, how long are they working with, and how many collabs can we have in a year, and all that. So I try to pitch it whenever I can, and let's see what happens. But I'm sure we'll do something with it because we did invest in the shoe, and so the production of a shoe and the mold for the bottom is expensive, and so we're gonna want to do something on it. So for sure,
sweet.
So it was a fun shoe.
Now it sounds like you're pretty well versed in the esports world. Give me a breakdown of the esports you follow, and esports in general, because I think a lot of the listeners probably severely underestimate how big, especially globally, esports are and the trajectory that they're on.
Sure. I won't go too much into detail just because I feel like listeners are going to want to Google stuff if they want to, and they should. But I think in a nutshell, esports in general are, I think, the most watched sport in the world. And so that in itself is a pretty good metric to kind of
I didn't know
wrap
that.
yourself around it.
I believe it though. That makes sense.
There's just it's so much more accessible, and
yes.
It ties into. There's a good analogy of if you watch a basketball game, how often do you actually go and play basketball right after? Pretty much
That's
never.
True. Never, yeah.
So you're generally drunk when you leave the game and you want to go do something else. And so when you're watching an esports game, let's say Overwatch, you're watching LA Valiant play LA Gladiators, two home LA teams, and they go at it at a derby. And right after the game or during the game, if you have multiple screens or even on your phone, you could watch the stream and play yourself. And you might see something in game like, oh shit, they did that. Okay, let me try that. You could try that immediately yourself, right there.
Yes.
And a lot of these games are free to play. Overwatch, I don't think is, but Call of Duty, for example, that I'm playing a lot now. I bought Call of Duty a while ago, but they released the free battle royale version, Warzone, and I've been playing that, and it's amazing. It's feels like Counter-Strike and has the battle royale-ness of all the battle royales I've played, but just didn't like I'm not that good at Fortnite. It wasn't a game for me. It was too childish of a game in a way. Like it was too cartoony for me. And it wasn't cartoony enough to be cool like Overwatch. Overwatch, I love the story arcs of the characters, and same with World of Warcraft. I love how Blizzard just has these vast characters with big histories and storylines and all of that. So I like that, but Fortnite just wasn't a game for me. You have to actually know how to build a lot to be able to play it as a shooter, and that's not for me. I want to be able to shoot in a shooter because I come from Counter-Strike. So
have you tried Apex?
I tried Apex. I think Apex was too much of a blend of Overwatch and a battle royale. Like there are too many bells and whistles to the characters, so it didn't work for me. I like how Counter-Strike and Call of Duty, the character in itself doesn't have a lot of special moves and stuff. You can buy a radar thing, or you can buy a precision airstrike, and you can buy these extra things to help you in game. But in terms of your character, you don't have like a magic thing that just explodes and everybody dies.
Yeah.
And so I tried Apex. It was fun, but even the friends I played with, they just didn't kind of get into it, and it reminded me a lot about Destiny 2, which I tried and then ended up not liking, and that was kind of Apex for me.
Okay, that makes sense. So you're liking Warzone. I've been seeing a lot of Warzone clips. People it seems to have pretty warm reviews so far.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, people are definitely liking it. A bunch of my homies have been streaming it a lot. It looks fun. I'm not a huge FPS gamer, minus I have been playing Halo 1 a lot on the Master.
I never got into Halo. I never got into Halo.
It's a lot of
I
people.
feel like it's
was
such
Halo
an
not
American
big?
thing too.
That's what I was just gonna ask. I'm pretty sure Halo's like American dumb bros. Like, give me my pickup truck and play me some Halo.
A little bit, but it's also the OG, like the older. I think one of my friends who's just about to turn 40. He's always like, "Hey, why don't you guys play some Halo?" I'm like, "Dude, no, like just no." I think it's also I was a PlayStation, first Nintendo, and then once I got an actual console, then I got a PlayStation 2, I think. PlayStation 1?
Probably 2.
No, PlayStation 2, yeah.
Yeah.
No, actually, PlayStation 3 was my first PlayStation.
PlayStation 3 was your first one?
Yeah,
Wow,
because I skipped a lot of
interesting.
ones. I was on Nintendo 64, and after Nintendo 64, I went straight to PC, and then I didn't look back to consoles at all, except the PSP, and Nokia's N-Gage and mobile games. But yeah, I was hardcore on PC only, and so I missed a lot of consoles in between, and then PlayStation came back once I got to playing FIFA and NHL, and that's when I got back to PlayStation for a little bit.
So the sports game sucked you back into the console world.
Yeah, and it was always fun to play with friends, and I think that's the biggest thing. Is my roommate at the time had a PlayStation, and we used to play a lot of NHL and FIFA, and I remember him, or we've known each other for a long time, so I remember after games he might get pissed off and throw the remote at the controller at the wall or something, but after we moved our separate ways after being roommates, he thanked me for being the only person who can calm him down enough to not break stuff like that. And he learned anger management, so that was great.
Badass. So I want to ask, 64, you had that. Is that like the first console you kind of had at home besides the PC? Is that like your first love,
Nope.
so to speak?
My Sega, I think it's the Sega Genesis. That
Yes.
that
Yes,
was
we overlap on that.
NHL 96.
Oh yeah, you said that in the text.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was, man, I love that, and it was the best. If you're losing, you just go ahead and switch to goalkeeper in the other team and put as many own goals as possible so that you still win the game.
It's a nice little hack. So you were into the sports games early on. I'm assuming hockey is probably like way bigger in Finland than it is in America.
Yeah, I mean, we did win the World Championship last year, so
Okay,
there's
I'm
that.
sorry, dude. I know. Only thing I know about hockey is N64 Wayne Gretzky. I know Wayne Gretzky is a guy that was good. That's all I know about hockey. So forgive me
Got
for
it.
my lack of hockey knowledge.
I mean, in reality, the only thing you need to know about hockey is that Finland is the best hockey country in the world, and the other ones aren't that good. That's all you need to know.
All right, so I didn't know that. So Finland's are the OGs.
Yeah, and Sweden is really bad. Anyone from Sweden ever saying that they're good at hockey should never believe them. They're always going to be lying.
I have some Swedish
Always
friends,
lying.
bro. I'm going to show them this podcast.
Yeah, just tell them that Finland is the better one.
All right. So you guys are way into hockey. That makes way sense. So you get into, is NHL, you said 95 or 96?
I think it was NHL 96.
Is that the first game that you got obsessed with? Or is there one before that?
I don't remember what I had for Sega. I just don't remember. I don't think I had a lot of games, and it was probably like a really weird fake-ass soccer game that I had, and then the NHL. I could have also had an NHL 94. I don't know. I think I've been trying to think about that, but I might have
Okay.
my years
Well, it's
mixed
probably
up. But
NHL.
somewhere there. Yeah,
If that's the one you remember, that's probably the one that you spent the most time with, right?
could be a
Definitely. So you went to 64 after Genesis?
Yes. So I skipped a lot in between, and I used to play at my friend's house mostly. That was always the thing. I would go to my friend's house and play there, and then that's even where I saw, like, I think Quake 2
Okay.
was my first like PC game. I saw my friend's big brother play. And I'm like, yo, what is this?
Yeah, that
Rocket
game
launchers and
was
Quake.
metal as shit. I'm sure it blew your
It
mind.
was amazing. There was just something about it that was after we were done playing Super Smash Brothers, your hands were all like beaten up from like having to win the mini games, and your hands were like completely messed up. Then you'd go to the computer and just watch him play that. And I think there's all these mini games I would see them play as well. Like his whole family were insane nerds, so they always had everything. And like little planes or something, it was like fighter planes in this 2D world, and we would just like go through all of these games. But Quake 2 was the one that stood out.
Quake 2 sticks out. Yeah, that's
Worms. Oh yeah, Worms. Man, we put a lot of time in Worms. Worms was the shit.
Yeah, Worms was dude. I'm glad you brought that up, because I had some good times too as a kid, because you take turns back and forth and you launch. It's kind of like tanks. Yeah, for those who haven't played Worms, it's hard to explain. They don't really make games like that. Maybe on the cell phone they make games like that, but I'm not familiar with the cell phone gaming world.
Kind of, but like people don't have the patience to wait anymore. Like you gotta wait your turn. Worms is almost like a copy of a board game. Like you actually have to wait, watch them play and do their thing. It was like, hey dude, like are you playing? Like we're waiting on you.
That's true. It's a digital board game. Yeah. But because you wait so long, the pressure of not fucking up your turn is so high. Because, like, if you make a bad mistake on Worms, like people who've never played this game, it's essentially like a 2D side scroller, but instead of it's action, like you have a turn, you play a little worm, you have different troops that have different abilities. It's like a tactics game.
Super cute voices too.
Yeah, cute voices.
Hello,
it's like
Captain.
Final Fantasy Tactics, but side scroller, and you play little worms, and you can take a turn, so you can only move a certain amount. Then you have your certain attacks, and it's very strategic. And if you make a mistake, let's say you're playing a 4-player game, you make a bad choice, you have to sit in agony during 3 turns while they just fuck you up because you made the wrong choice, and the whole time you're like thinking, okay, what am I going to do on my next turn? But then the first guy goes, he ruins you. You think you have a plan, but then the second guy does something different than you think what he was going to do. Then your original plan is now ruined, and it's like so much. And then it finally gets back to your turn. I don't know. There's a magic to it. There's a magic.
Remember
to it.
In the end, like once everybody has had their turn, if there's any environmental things like a gas canister or a mine, only after everybody else is gone, the camera slowly goes back to you, and then that mine that's been sitting there for all of those rounds that everybody attacked, then it explodes. And you're just like, you die. Yes. Or there's a gas canister you burn to death, or the water. Oh yeah, the water level was going up every turn. The water level went up, so the map got smaller and smaller and smaller. And then you just
that's a good game. Great.
There's some brutal weapons there, like napalm and all this. Like they're like that was a crazy game.
Yeah, it's a really good game. You're the first person to bring that up. So plus 10 internets to you, Mr. Finland.
Yes.
The first one to bring up Worms, I believe, on the podcast. So you went to N64 after that. What game stands out the most on the N64? Oof. This is a popular console.
GoldenEye 007. Let's go.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I even played it on... Like, I'm this into old Nintendo game, or actually Game Boy specifically, and Nintendo 64, that I've had the emulators on my computer so that I could replay James Bond on Nintendo 64 on my computer.
Yeah, definitely. All my retro gaming, honestly, I post a lot of like retro gaming clips, sort of like a filler in between episodes, just so I have something to post every day. And it's all on emulator. I love emulators because it's like
they're amazing.
And there's a really real, depending on the game. Like I don't know a ton about the GoldenEye 64 mod community, but like on Nintendo 64, at least I think it's Project 64 is the emulator I use.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you can do a texture swap. So like people will remake. They will basically mod the graphics, and so you can play like sort of fan-made remastered versions. Like Super Mario 64 there's a version where everyone made it look like the GameCube or a cell shaded game makes it look like Dragon Ball Z. You can download like different versions, like aesthetics, and they swap out all the textures for the game. And if you're into emulators and you're into retro gaming, it's really the best way to play. Like technically, let's be real, it's illegal, right? It's only supposed to be used to play a backup of a physical copy of a game you own. None of us are doing that shit. But like, I don't care because there's no other way. There's no other way to do these kind of things, like the mods. And like, I'll play a lot of games on EPSXE, which is the PS1 emulator. There's PS2, and with modern graphics cards, you can like run it at 4K, 60 FPS. You can filter all the textures. Like, you can make the game actually run better than it was intended. And the key, save states. Have you ever played a game with save states? Time saver. Oh my god! If you're trying to make clips or something, just boom, instant reload. The speed, the time saved. It's like all the best parts of retro gaming, with all like the annoying parts taken out, like the time, the waste of time in between,
and no blowing into cartridges and stuff.
No blowing, yes.
However, here's something that really pisses me off. You ready? You ready, kid?
I'm ready.
This is what pisses me off.
Take a drink.
Nintendo Online. When I bought the Nintendo Switch, they have the Nintendo Online service, and they have the retro system thing. You get to play all these retro games.
Yes.
But there's no Nintendo 64 games.
I didn't know that. There's no 64 games on their online.
At least not when I had a membership for over a year, and like it's some of the classics for I think Super Nintendo. That's about it. Nintendo and Super Nintendo, I think. That's it.
I wonder if they were
maybe
planning...
have like 40 titles.
Oh, I wonder. I don't know this. I'm wondering if they were planning on rolling it out in chronological order, like the Nintendo games come first, the Super Nintendo, and maybe checking.
That's okay, but it's taking too long. Like,
hey, yeah, I get it.
Once the service launched, like it's the same with like Disney Plus. When you launch, I expect you to have stuff coming up. Like every month. Okay, all right, okay. Like the first year should have been amazing re-releases and then keep it going until we're at Nintendo 64 and then Game Boy Advance and all these. Like,
yeah.
If you want me to pay $10 a month, no, actually it was probably cheaper. But I would pay $10 a month if it had everything.
If it had everything. Well,
that would be worth it for me.
Fuck Nintendo. Just play it on an emulator. They can have your money when they deserve it.
Exactly. So I've canceled my subscription to them.
Yeah. Nintendo, I mean, jokes aside, Nintendo has notoriously, for I think like at least 3 to 4 console generations, been very behind on anything related to online and digital. They've been I don't know what, I've had this same question to other people on the podcast. I don't know what Nintendo's sort of business logic, what their tactical logic behind why they've been so resistant to adopting that. Some people have said it's because they want to have like an Apple-esque closed system. They want to have like full control of everything in their brand, which makes sense, but you can do that without still having such a mediocre online product.
Yeah, I think the biggest risk they're running is that they're going to alienate you and me, like the original Nintendo fanboys, like the people who actually care, and we want to show our kids that.
Yes.
Someday when I have kids, I want to show them the games I grew up with. And if I can't show them Super Mario World, what's it called, right?
On Super Nintendo?
So Mario 64.
Mario
64. That's what it was called. Yeah.
Might be the best Mario of all.
Oh, I don't even know what other Mario
the Super Nintendo,
is.
The SNES, would be a close competitor.
Those are the only ones that you could compare because they're fantastic.
Yeah.
But anything past Mario 64, I have no clue over. Like, I have no idea what they made. Like, I just don't know. Because Mario 64 was amazing, and it's unfortunate that they're kind of missing out on those people. But we'll see. We'll see if they catch up. They have a lot of work to do, though.
So 64.
But the Switch has been a good product.
On any other games stand out to you? Like strong memories on 64? Yeah.
There's I think it was actually, it might have been made by the same people that made GoldenEye. I think it was called Dark Eye or Dark?
Perfect Dark, baby.
Perfect Dark. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I love that. We put in so many hours into that. I would like to bet that it's more hours that I currently have on Counter-Strike.
Really?
Or Overwatch for sure.
So you got good at Perfect Dark. You played a lot.
I wouldn't say good. Or maybe it just feels so, trying to remember it. Maybe we didn't actually play a lot as much then, because we also played more soccer and skateboarded. And so I would assume that we didn't have as much time to play. I don't know. Hard to say. Because, I mean, now I can put up a full weekend in gaming 10 hours per day, and no one's going to be like, I'm going to cut the electricity off. Like, my mom's cut the electricity off in our whole apartment because of, like, late nights. I'd be playing a 5-on-5 Counter-Strike game, just a ranked league game, and it's like 11, I guess, or 10 or whatever, and she just thinks I need to go to sleep, and like, you said you're going to quit the game in 30 minutes. I'm like, yeah, but we're in overtime. It's a competitive game. There's 9 other people here. I can't just jump out. Like, I'll actually get banned if I do this. You're like, I don't care.
Oh, no.
Like, great. Okay, so I guess I need to find a new team because they're going to kick me out of this team. Great. So, but
thanks, Mom.
Yeah. But
hey,
I don't think I got kicked out of that many teams.
Small price to pay for hanging out at Mom's house playing games.
Yeah, I'm just grateful enough to have a loving home like that, and then the fact that I was lucky enough to have any sort of gaming experience
100%.
Back in the night. Like, at that time, like, there was no reason for my mom to spend the little we had on me being able to game, or my uncle giving those options, and I'm happy they did, because I mean, me having a computer at that age led to me having a career today.
100%. That makes total sense.
They're totally linked. In my entire graphic design and web design career started off with me making websites for Counter-Strike teams.
That's
so I had to learn Photoshop.
Yes,
that way.
That's awesome. That's one thing I always try to connect on the podcast is, like, how is gaming basically influence your work life? And for you, it's the genesis.
Yeah. Without gaming, it's weird. And from gaming, I learned that you could become a professional at something else than the normal things, and you can actually you can get money and you can get stuff through gaming. And everybody's shouting right now because it's 8 p.m. For the healthcare workers, so we should also do a howl. Okay, good.
Wait, why is everyone shouting? I don't get it.
8 p.m. It's for the healthcare workers. Everybody's in the neighborhood. They're blinking their lights. They're screaming, shouting, hitting cans,
like
clapping,
community
in support for. Yeah. So
nice.
The entire everywhere here. It's ever since I moved a couple weeks ago. It's been 8 p.m. They're copying what they did in Italy and Spain, and so it's spreading everywhere now. And
that's beautiful.
Yeah,
you know what?
I've seen on Nextdoor, I've seen a lot of healthcare workers just kind of comment back that, hey, I normally don't comment, but I'm happy that people are doing this. I was walking my dog, and I was just crying because of the emotional support I felt from my neighbors, and
from the community. Dude, I feel emotional just hearing you talk about it. Like, it's my wife has a friend who's a nurse, so that's like the closest connection I have. I know her pretty well. It's one of my wife's best friends, and I've been following the kind of things she's been posting online because it's the only person I know in my, like, immediate circle that has that perspective, that insider's perspective. Mm-hmm. I've been following her shit online pretty closely during the whole thing, and I think that of all the bad news and obviously online, I work in online marketing, and I'm sure you're aware of this. You work in marketing too, but, like, the bad news drives the clicks and makes more money. Mm-hmm. And so you just have to understand that that's at play. There's actually a lot of beautiful things. There's a lot of examples of humans, like, rising to the occasion, communities rising.
Humans being bros.
Yeah, being bros and being homies and supporting each other. And, like, that doesn't obviously get as much media attention because it's not as financially viable. as headlines. It's just not. But
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
happening. It's happening. And I think it's important to know those things are happening to get a balanced perspective.
For sure. I always like I've been an addict of NPR and KCRW since I moved here. It's been kind of my portal into LA and kind of understanding national things in America, I guess, and seeing, I guess, the public non-commercial side of radio. And even today, actually, they're asking to send your song recommendations, and we'll pick some and play them on radio. Then, like, I tweeted something, and I think a minute later she goes, "All right, so we have one of my favorite songs is actually requested from I Am Santi Fox, Leon Ware's Why I Came to California. All right, let's go." And then she played the song. I'm like,
Nice.
what? And then I tweeted back at her that was my that made my day. Thank you. And that was my anthem for when I left home, left everything, and came here. And that was my anthem. And wouldn't it be fun to collect a playlist of other people's anthems? So then the next break after the next song, she read that tweet out aloud again. It's like, hey, actually, this is a great idea. We should do this. And
Bro, you got to charge her for that. You're giving away your genius.
Hey, it's a public radio station, nonprofit, so they can have all my ideas. I donate money to them every month, and I've done it for a couple of years. So it makes me very happy.
That would be a great, like, Spotify public playlist, a community curated. Everyone puts in, like, their anthem, the one that they go back to.
Their one song.
Yeah. Their one song. Then you go running. You pop that playlist on, baby. Smoke a little bowl. Go running.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to run 100 miles in one night, bitch.
Yep.
Yeah, it's going down.
Yeah, I worked in nightlife for, I think, 4 years, 4.5 almost. And so there was a lot of songs that were every year there was a new song. I'm like, this is it. Yeah.
My anthem.
There's always.
What's your anthem right now? What's your current anthem?
Oof, I don't know. I've recently rediscovered music and just noticed how much music affects the quality of my work. And I switched from Apple Music to Spotify. Back to Spotify. I used to be on Spotify because of Europe. I mean, we had Spotify first. Everybody here was on Pandora, which, I'm just going to leave that there, Pandora.
Hey, bro, I had Pandora. I discovered some dope shit on Pandora.
I just don't know how I feel about it.
It's an inferior setup, but because it came earlier, for those who adopted it, like, you just pick an artist radio. And I would just let it roll and then save all the songs I liked. And those are the songs that I used to sample and reference for beat making. So initially when I was doing the music thing, I would create a playlist called Inspire, which is like, if I heard a beat that made me want to make a beat, something about it, like, gave me that spark, then I would put it in a playlist, and I got hundreds and hundreds of beats from Pandora because of that. And then anytime I wanted to make music, I would just sit down, open up that playlist, and I know every song on this playlist at one point gave me the itch. And I would just cycle through it until one of them gives me the itch. I'm like, oh, hell yeah, this is my date tonight. And so Pandora, look, it's inferior to Spotify. I'm not saying it isn't, but it had its uses because we didn't have Spotify.
Yeah, I get it. Have you ever thought of this? Spotify is actually Napster.
What do you mean?
Well,
not like
we went to Napster to listen to music, and now you just open Spotify, you click on a song and press play, and it downloads that song to you. You just happen to pay $9.99 a month for it. What's the difference?
The $10.99. That's the difference.
Yeah, but as a technology platform, or as a service to you,
functionality. Almost, it's essentially the same thing.
That's what Napster could have. They could have just done all of this 20 years ago.
But do you not? I mean, you're a little bit younger than me, so maybe this is not as big of a deal for you. But from about 15 to 21 for me, which is crucial years for like anything, gaming, music, movies. That's where a lot of your taste is formed. That kind of sets you up for burning CDs was a revolution for me. Revolution.
Oh, man, I burnt a lot of CDs. A
And
lot. Because I had the computer. So everybody came to me.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. It was a whole new world. It's like fucking Aladdin. It was because you
My
get
favorite Disney movie, Aladdin.
It is?
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen the live action remake?
Yes.
Yes, and I judging from your reaction, I had the same feeling about that movie. What a letdown.
I watched it again just because the first time I saw it, we went for breakfast at 9, and it was the morning that we watched Finland play the World Cup finals in hockey. So we started drinking around, I think, 11. And from there we went to, I think that took 2.5 hours of constant drinking. We then went from there to Diamond Supply Parties, a skateboard brand, and they had free alcohol and a weed bar, so free weed as well. So we did that for 2-3 hours. Then for some reason we were leaving.
I need to go to Finland.
America no, this sucks. Was here. This was here in LA.
There's a weed bar in LA? You can do that?
So when you throw parties, they had a weed brand as a sponsor, so there's free weed everywhere. They're just people walking around. Would you like a vaporizer? Like, sure, okay.
Right. I didn't realize it was like that chill in California. But I mean, it was. Chill.
even the latest party we went to, we got there and there's 2 lines. There's one for the bar, free drinks, free liquor and beer. And then there's another one for free weed. If you follow these 3 different weed brands, you would... I think I walked home with probably 7 grams of weed. That's a lot of weed.
You're so spoiled. You don't know what it's like. Bro,
I know what it's like. I've sat in parking lots, minus 20 Celsius parking lots, waiting to be able to go upstairs to get weed from your guy, and then you still have to sit there and hang out in the a den you don't want to hang out, but because it's courtesy and you're waiting, they're like, okay, so can I get 5 grams? Okay, thank you. 15, 16, 18 euros per gram. Oh, okay. Well, here you go.
How would when did it become like semi-legal in Finland?
Never. It's still illegal.
I thought you guys were like decriminalized over there.
No, it's only the Netherlands has Amsterdam, and then let's see. I think it's pretty loose in Italy and Spain, but not legal to my knowledge. It's Amsterdam, and then there's a district in Copenhagen. So the capital of Denmark, Copenhagen. They have a part of town that's called Christiania, where you can buy hash. I think you can buy hash and weed, and I don't think you can buy a lot. And you can only the stuff you buy, you have to smoke it there. I think there's nowhere else, and it's like this weird, like old part of town, but it just has these small mini pubs where you can get weed. But Amsterdam, that's the weed place of Europe. So we went there. We went in Europe. You can do this thing called the Interrail. So you buy a train ticket for a month and a half for like $1,000, and you can go unlimited rides. So we would start and we would go through all of Europe with train and boats and all this, and stay in motels and stuff like this. And we started in Amsterdam and spent, I think, 2 nights there, 3 nights there.
That's a good idea. I want to do that.
So you can still do it as an adult. It's a little bit more expensive, but it's like once everything now calms down, it's the one thing I recommend that if you get to do one thing in Europe, you should do an Interrail or like a multi-city trip, because to see everything that Europe has to offer, that's the only way. Like, spend a month and a half. You're going to make so many new friends. You're just going to be around in cities where you can walk. You can go all around. You can go to northern Italy to see the Alps and go ski or mountain biking. Then you can go to a vineyard, have some wine and some pasta somewhere.
I did all that. I did Italy last summer, and I'll be honest, it was 100% like legit magical.
Yeah.
Like there was like stress, like driving. It was like I got a little stressed driving there because like there was just a lot of things I couldn't read the signs and like we got lost a couple times. But
Yep.
overall, I don't know how to explain it. My like just the vibe in general was better. It's better than here.
It's hard to describe. Yeah, you're right. And especially for you, if you're an American who really isn't like an asshole jock, you'll be fine. Like you will love Europe, and people will treat you so well.
Yes,
But
definitely.
then if you're like an asshole jock, then you will behave like a dumb American. That you watch any movie where there's Americans behaving badly. That's what I mean. I kind of mean. It's like, hey, dude, watch it. I'm like, I'm gonna kick your ass. Hey, don't you know who my dad is? Punk ass. Like,
Well,
I
there's at
guess
least enough of us like that the stereotype exists. Otherwise, the stereotype wouldn't
that's
exist.
usually the only people who can afford to go to Europe. That's the problem.
That makes
Summertime, like it's weird that I have an actual example of this. We were in Florence in Italy, and we had met this dude called Arno, German guy, and we met him on the train, and he just like hung along with us for a couple of different cities and countries, and we were out in a bar drinking, and I think the guy overheard us say something in German because I speak German as well, and I think he just turned around and he was like, "What? This bar is filled with Nazis? What is this?" And we're
Wait,
like, "What the?"
Really?
Yeah.
This is a real story?
Yeah, my German
Goddamn
friend just
America.
kind of freezes. Like, Arno just freezes and looks around, and me and my other friend's like, "Okay, let's go. Let's go. You ready? Let's go." And I went to the yard with the guy, and he's like, just, "I'm gonna kick your ass, dude. Like, you not to love it." I'm like, "Do you even know what the fuck you're talking about? Like, what is your problem?" He's like, my grandfather died in the war. I'm like, "Okay, well, do you realize that pretty much everybody in our country fought in a war, or like we were invaded by Russia and we won, and like any one of
Well, you're not even
around you
German.
here like has something like that in their family, and how now your grandfather is somehow more important in a way than all these other people, and you're carrying on hatred from somewhere. Like, what, like, how are you letting that bother your life?" And I guess he'd never been in a fight where someone actually just talks back to you, and he's like, just started bawling, and we didn't have to fight, and then we went inside, he apologized, and we continued our night.
Yeah, that sounds like, I don't know. He's got some issues, right? Obviously.
Oh yeah, he
Broke
definitely
down.
had some issues, and it
dealing
came
with some
out
shit.
that way. And
Yeah.
I'm happy I didn't get my ass kicked by him, because he was a lot bigger than I was.
Well,
That would have hurt.
it is kind of an American thing to be like, we're number one, so everything revolves around us. So yeah, my grandfather's death 100% means more because he's a fucking American, biatch.
Yeah,
There's
he was fighting for
definitely a
freedom.
little bit of that in America, and
There's
yeah,
only
the
one
stereotype
country in the
exists.
world with freedom. Okay, sure.
But Europeans, when I went there, man, everyone was like, yeah, again, very polite. There was a certain, my thought was, is the vibe because it's such like an older country and there's thousands of years of just like culture layered on top of it, and is that what I'm picking up? Because I've also lived and spent a lot of time in Australia. And Australia, even though visually it had more different plant life, and a lot of things about it on the surface seemed more different than America, but Australia was actually more similar to America in my experience than Europe was. And the main difference would be there's just something in the earth or something like, it sounds woo-woo, it sounds weird. Like I have crystals in my bedroom, which I promise you I don't. I don't have any crystals. But there was something weirdly mystical about, like, I think it's like history, like the vibe of more history.
I can see that. I can definitely see that. I think even what my personal identity as a Finnish person is, I think is amplified because I'm abroad, you know, and I think I'm more connected to my Finnish roots and more interested in being a Finnish person. and so and every country has that. Everybody just has a long history, and America just has a fucked up history, first of all. So like there's just a lot of
hey,
like,
bro, that's not my fault.
no, I'm not blaming you or anybody else for that matter. I'm just saying that
We do, though.
it's a country with a really troubled history, and there's a lot of countries with really messed up histories, looking at France and the UK. But, you know, there's a lot of countries that don't. And so they don't have the same type of rage and anger in their family trees or in their, you know, surroundings, communities.
That's a good
So,
point. I've never really thought of like this. I'm kind of thinking about this in real time because it's the 1st time I thought about this. But the correlation between how much trouble is in a country's history versus to like the baseline maybe anxiety and anger level of the population.
Yeah.
There's probably a correlation.
yeah, and it makes sense. If you look at the happiest places on planet Earth, there's Finland and Denmark. Or I think we got picked as the happiest people on planet Earth last year again. And I guess me and my friends are always like, who did they ask? Like,
Yeah. How do they decide that?
yeah. But I do see, as a whole, I can see that our nation, people feel generally better than here. Even the people here that seem super happy all the time, like you can just see that they're miserable, or that when they lash out, you're like, wow, I see the pettiness in the way you lash out, and from that I can see that something is really hurting you inside, and it's the years from coming out.
Yeah.
And now you're just lashing out because, you know, you're frustrated for thing X, or you messed up and it led into X, Y, and Z, and now you're just lashing out. And so, and you're just not thinking about the entire situation, like being able to understand the big picture of what's going on. So,
Did you play
But-
any RTS games growing up?
RTS,
Like Command and
role-
Conquer, Warcraft type shit?
So, yeah, I was gonna bring that up. So, this is funny. Before we had internet at home, before 28.8K dial-up modem, we went to the library next to us. So Finland's big on libraries. Like there's even one pretty much close to the North Pole. Like there's a library that just I watched the episode yesterday about gold diggers in Finland, and that area actually has a library in the middle of absolutely nowhere. But we used to go, me and some of the kids from the neighborhood, or the neighborhood I lived in, we would go to the library, and you could reserve time on the schedule. So there were two computers you could play CD-ROM games, so you could play Command and Conquer, and then later on you could play Command and Conquer Red Alert, which I put a lot of hours into.
That's the best one, baby.
Red Alert 2, right?
Red Alert
That's
2,
probably-
it might be better. It's either or.
And then there was Command and Conquer Tiberian Sun, right?
Sun, yeah.
I put so much time into that, as well as like Disney games like Lion King, and like they're the first games that I got to click through. I'm like, okay, well, this is dumb. Well, but I can't. I want to be. I spent so much time in the library not reading books. I was just there because I got to be on a computer. So, and I met still, like, if one of my oldest and best friends is we met playing RuneScape at the library.
Ooh.
And we played just so much RuneScape. It's ridiculous. And there was a guy who was in the top 10 rankings of the world, and he was playing at the library, and he would always have like 5-6 people with him, like his posse.
Yeah.
And he was like a Vietnamese dude, and he was insane Street Fighter. And so like you didn't want to necessarily like log into your account when you're around, because he might actually be like, yo, give me your account. And like, what are you going to do? You're a small kid, and he's like a 16-year-old who's going to kick your ass.
Is that how he became number one?
No, I mean, he was actually good at PKing people, but I just remember that there were situations like there's dangerous situations in the library because of RuneScape.
Wow. And for those of you who don't know RuneScape, what makes this story even better, RuneScape is like old free-to-play Diablo clone, basically.
Yeah. Oh my God, Diablo 2.
Yeah, Diablo. Yeah, really grindy games. Really, really
Yeah.
grindy game.
Fishing lobster. Then at some point they added a zone called the wilderness where you get to fight other players, and you couldn't escape a fight in the first 3 rounds. And each one you would get like it would be like you get one hit. Okay, now you get one hit. I get one hit. You get one hit.
Yep.
I get one hit. And then you could run, you could eat a lobster or eat something repellent to your life, and once your bag is empty, that's just the end of the fight. Or maybe someone's friend catches you and they get the kill. But whoever I think strikes the killing blow actually sees the entire drop of gear. All of your armor drops to the floor,
Yeah.
and then whoever actually got the last blow can loot all of that stuff and then run away. And so that game was you might have lost everything you worked for, your absolute best rune armor, and you'd work so hard to get that. You buy it somehow or trade lobsters, sell lobsters, and you had to fish for you had to fish for lobsters and then you had to cook them. And you could sell them cooked or you could sell them raw. If you sold them raw, you got more money because the person who bought them raw would then be leveling up their cooking skill because they'd buy all that lobster, then go cook them, and then either eat them or sell them, but they would sell for less because you can only use them for food now. You can't actually level up your skill to 99, and 99 was the gap.
Yeah, that game, I tinkered around with it. I saw kids playing with it, and I've seen quite a bit of gameplay. I've browsed some forums. I'm semi-familiar with the culture behind it. It's a magical game for a lot of people, known for being super grindy.
I think, changed a lot of people's lives.
Definitely.
Like, that game changed
it's one of the first
a lot of
free-to-play kind of like accessible on every PC. Every PC could run it. It's like the League of Legends model before League of Legends.
Yeah, exactly. It was just such a low, like, you didn't need anything to play it. It was just the most basic computer could run it, and I think that was their entire. I think there's a YouTube documentary about it even, but I think that was their entire goal was to how do we build a game that's so large but at the same time small and everybody can play it.
Yep.
And I think they did a really beautiful job, and then they completely messed it up by doing new versions of it. But I'm just an old hater. I mean, I know there's kids that found that game when it was a little bit cooler with the 3D version.
Yeah.
But it was never like, that's not what I wanted. I would love to get access to my old account just to log in and see what I have, and like that's it. Like I would love that to be able to do that. But there's no way for me to time travel. I know that those accounts are gone, or I wouldn't even know what email I used, and that email probably doesn't exist either. So
they live on in your soul. They live on in your soul, my friend.
I will forever remember RuneScape, Super Smash Brothers, Counter-Strike, and Worms.
What about so you got a PS3. You ended up going back to the PS3. What games did you get into on the PS3 besides FIFA? I know we talked about FIFA a little bit. That's what got you into it. Anything else on the PS3?
Call of Duty. Yeah, Call of Duty. Okay. I played a little bit of Call of Duty because one of my friends, actually a couple of my friends, in particular was really, really into Call of Duty. And so I would try that, and then it was just really hard to play. I would have to smoke a lot of weed to be good at it. It was too fast, and I couldn't focus. And so once I was a little bit high on weed, then I was able to kind of slow everything down and actually see what's going on, and I would actually be the top fragger in some games. But without smoking any weed, that's not a game I could play.
It's weed and gaming, and I've even found with jiu-jitsu and some other stuff, but there is a performance enhancing aspect. Like,
for sure.
I think you could legitimately. I mean, I don't know. You tell me. Is weed? Can you compete in esports while high, or is it illegal?
I actually don't know. I think someone can Google that up. I think they're pretty strict with drug testing. but I think it's mainly for like ADHD drugs or
like
something
stimulants.
that's
Stimulants.
or what's that thing that students do, Adderall, right?
Yeah.
And I would assume that they're more into that than weed. So I don't know, but
I was
you
gonna
got to be
say
really good at what you do. That's the first thing. Like weed
Yes.
will not make you better at anything unless you're actually interested in it and actually like you know what you're doing. Otherwise,
But
it'll just freak you out.
yes. But what I can say, which helps with the freaking out, is when you get high and then you focus on something really engaging, whether it's like a martial art or my first combo was running. It's actually how me and Omar became friends initially before we started Damn Son. Is we would just smoke a bowl and go running. And
Nice.
when you combine that physical aspect, you get into this rhythm, and you get like you get in sort of like a deeper flow state, or it's easier or quicker to get into a flow state than
I love that.
than you didn't.
I
have
love
the
that
weed.
explanation. Yeah. I've used that a couple times now. It'll help you get faster to flow.
To flow. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was gonna say, if they are illegal in esports, I would get it. Like, because
Yeah,
it is a
I'd
legitimate.
get that.
It is a legitimate performance enhancer, and like we were talking about Smash earlier. The very first episode was Todd Robbins. Shout out to Todd. He's YouTube channel Kuma Films. Check him out. Big, huge, badass YouTube channel. Him and I sold. We both got really good at Smash because we sold door to door together. Spent the whole summer knocking doors, and at night playing Smash. And I started smoking weed, and he didn't. He was like kind of straight edge, like didn't do anything.
Yeah.
When I started smoking weed, we were neck and neck on Smash. I started smoking weed, and I, pun intended, started smashing him. Like, he couldn't touch me. Like, everything slowed down, and I would, like, all his timing, I would see everything before he could do it. And then he started smoking weed. Eventually, he's like, fuck it, I'm going to smoke weed. And then we went back to 50-50. It brought him, like, to a similar level. So it definitely does
crazy,
something.
Man. I don't know what. I guess it just helps you. I don't think it helps me relax. I don't know what it is. I think. I don't know. I think it is just the flow state, because if I'm working on a website or anything creative, right? I need to have something that'll take me to flow. I either need to just get my mood set there, I need to start working and I'll get there, or I need a stimulant. It could be coffee, it could be music, it could be a combination of those, it could be a combination of all two, those and weed, all three of them. I've always told people that if you haven't tried weed and coffee, you definitely should, in whatever amounts are minimal for you in both of them.
Because if you overdo weed and coffee, you're in for a bad time.
Well, yeah, if you do overdo anything, and I'm always
It's true.
When people tell me that they've had a bad experience with weed, I try to tell the same story every time. It's like, no, you have bad friends, because your friends shouldn't let you smoke too much weed if you're just dabbling in it, you know.
Yes.
You can really mess it up quickly, and I don't recommend weed for anybody. I think everybody they're either gonna find it and try it out and see if it works for them for whatever they're looking for, and if it helps them, great. If it doesn't, then good. Like it's not for everybody, and weed doesn't even help me in the things that I intended to use it outside them recreationally anymore. Like I have from ice hockey and jiu-jitsu and working as a bouncer, I have just absolute chronic pain in my shoulder every day, and weed doesn't take away the pain. Like everybody thinks that, oh, you'll smoke some weed and your muscle pain will go away. Well, no, it doesn't. You might forget about it, and it might be easier to forget about it.
Yeah.
That's about it.
That's what I was going to... when you start talking, I think my guess is, or my sense is, the reason that marijuana helps you get into flow quicker or maybe deeper is by the mechanic of helping you tune out everything else besides... Because it enhances. So if you can't focus and you have too much, then you'll end up getting scatterbrained because everything catches your attention. But if you have the right amount, and you have the right amount of like focus muscle, or especially if you're doing, like I said, if you're doing jujitsu, there is no way to be distracted. Someone's trying to kill you.
No. Yeah,
So
exactly.
it forces you, and the marijuana just like, I like the combo. But even I could see with gaming, like, again, going back to Smash Brothers, and you talking about only being good at it when you were smoking, that makes total sense. I wonder. My guess is most gamers probably smoke, so it's probably not that much of an advantage at the pro level because most of them are probably smoking anyway, right?
I don't know. I feel like a lot of pro gamers feel, especially now they're streaming all day long, it doesn't look like they're smoking, at least. Or maybe they might be doing edibles, I don't know, whenever they do a bathroom break. But I think, especially now, because they're also entertainers, so they might not actually feel comfortable being high and on camera.
Yeah.
And so, and the other thing is that a lot of these people are really young. And so I wouldn't recommend anybody who's under 25.
I agree.
That shouldn't smoke weed
especially
at
if
all.
you're a male. You should maybe wait.
Yeah.
I think you could make the argument that maybe 26, 27 if you're a male before you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I think the longer you wait with weed, I think the more you'll enjoy it. Like, drink alcohol, like, get fucked up, do that. And then when you get older, then you're like, yeah, I don't really need to drink that much. There's no you're what? You're doing a flaming absinthe drink? Oh, well, yeah, I don't need to try that anymore. I've done that.
Yeah.
And so drink when you're young, then smoke when you're older.
I didn't do really much. I grew up pretty religious. I'm sure Omar's talked to you about that. But
Yeah.
I didn't really start smoking weed heavily until like 24, maybe 25, and I think that's been one of the reasons why it hasn't impacted my life negatively like some of my friends who started smoking at like 13 or 14. I don't think it's. I mean, there's a little bit in where I grew up because smoking made you an outsider in the religious community, and that also had like its own. There's some of that going on, but I think even disregarding that whole factor, heavy smoking in a teenage developing brain, especially a boy, I think that's a bad combo. Like a really bad combo.
Really, really bad combo. Your brain is still developing, and you're not. It just ruins a lot of stuff, and I think it also doesn't help you build character when you're young at those critical age. Like, I was a kid that hung out in every possible neighborhood in the entire city, and even the neighboring cities, and so I saw a lot of people that were in kind of bad situation and were around, like, were using drugs at a very young age when they're 14, 15, 16, and starting smoking cigarettes when they're like 12, 13. And that just like, that never led to anything good.
Definitely.
And even today, when I look back, like, there's one out of 50 is trying to be entrepreneurial and change the projection of their entire family's, wealth. And the rest are just doing the same,
cycle.
Yeah, same cycle. And it's, I think the decisions they made when they're younger, the fights they got into, the school they skipped and all that affected affected their chances in life later. And
Definitely.
Even when I hung out in the same crews and I still sucked at school, I was still clear. Now looking back, I was on the path of figuring out Photoshop, figuring out gaming, figuring out internet relay IRC chat, being in contact with all these things and getting involved in esports, and all these things were happening at the same time. Organizing parties, photography, all these things happened throughout 14 to 18, and that helped me get to where I am today. And I think
that makes total sense. You bring it up like how involved you have been on the branding side, not the actual competitive gaming, but more the ecosystem surrounding it. Mm-hmm. What's the dopest gaming related event you've ever been to, and why?
I actually have 3 stories for you.
Okay, hit me. I'm ready. All three.
So, first story is in. I might get some years wrong, but who cares? I think 2006 Assembly Winter. 2006 DreamHack in Gothenburg in Sweden. I wanted to be a part of it somehow. I don't know why I got that into my head, but I wanted to do it. And I think I had just been working for a couple nonprofits in Finland. I think I was 15, and they were organizing LAN parties. So we had LAN parties for maybe 150, 200 people. And I went to my first one, and it was actually with the Quake friend whose brother was in Quake, and we used to play and then on the same Counter-Strike team, so we went to LAN parties. That got me interested in that. Then I decided I wanted to go to this massive event, and I think DreamHack is one of the biggest LAN parties in the world. I know they do DreamHack in America as well.
Yes.
But that was DreamHack Sweden, and there was two teams playing that I wanted to see, and it was Ninjas in Pajamas. They had some of the best Counter-Strike players in history ever, at least back then. And so I somehow got to work for free as one of the admins. So I got to stand behind the players directly and watch them so that they don't cheat. So I had the best view from anybody in the world to actually see the live game. I was right behind the players. It was the best place to be, and I got to watch the matches I wanted to see, and I saw my idols just around me, and I slept on the floor in what's it called? One of those things you take camping and you roll
sleeping
yourself
bag?
into. Sleeping bag, right? Where all the admins, everybody were kids, I think, and we were just, sleeping there and then wake up the next day and work again, and then they tear up the entire LAN party and you go home.
Dude, would be, especially the age at 15. I imagine myself getting to work or volunteer at an event like that. I definitely played a lot of single-player gaming growing up. I took a completely different trajectory than you did. But I was really into music, and I can imagine if I got to work for some sort of music festival as a 15-year-old, as a volunteer, it would have blown my mind for the rest of my life.
Exactly.
So that makes total sense to me.
The crazy thing is that at that same event, I just, when you're alone, you actually, I think I meet more people always when I'm alone, because I'll try to be like, okay, I'm going to go talk to this person, or I'm always naturally curious. I have the curiosity of a 5-year-old child. I'm just going to look at everything and be fascinated by it. And so I met two very critical people. One was Krister. He was the owner for QPad. They did mouse pads, professional gaming mouse pads. We somehow hit it off, and he then eventually made me the country manager of Finland on the chats. So all the gamers in Finland would see that I was one of the main people for the brand, right?
Yeah,
and a mod, and people who wanted to be sponsored by QPad would send their thing to me, a 16, 15-year-old me. And then I got to send them, QPad would send me a bunch of mouse pads, and I would take them to them or send them to them. So that was super cool. And but there's another guy I met there, Nicholas, and when we're doing the launch for the esports show we did here with K-Swiss, we found an event that we then sponsored, and once we're at the sponsorship dinner, I get introduced hey, this is Santi, this is Nicholas. I'm like, whoa, what? And we both of our minds were blown, because we haven't seen each other since that event in Sweden. And now the company I work for just became one of the main sponsors for his event they're doing in America. That's
gaming,
ridiculous.
Bringing lives together.
Oh, right.
It's better than Jesus.
It's crazy. And I mean, we've been in touch. We just, weren't that deeply in touch, but we were still Facebook friends and MySpace friends and everything.
What was the second coolest event you've been to?
Second coolest was, I think, there's an Assembly Helsinki. So Assembly is the biggest LAN party in Finland. They do Assembly Summer and Assembly Winter. I think Assembly Summer has over 10,000 attendees. And I've attended a couple times. I worked there a couple times, and I think the last time I went, I worked as one of the hosts again for QPad and I think Logitech, and I was asked to go on stage to host a Street Fighter tournament between a celebrity who later in life we became friends, and then someone who like I guess won the tournament and got to fight him on stage. And I've never hosted anything more to like, you know, street promotion or like just some promotional event, like small things. And this was the first time I'm on stage in front of like 10,000 gamers, and we're hosting the Street Fighter thing. And that was like, I've just never had that where I walk on stage with a microphone, like, oh shit. And I actually found a clip of that on YouTube. And it was someone sitting in the audience just filming it, and so I have a recent memory of that actually happening.
Nice.
And so really random, weird moments that have happened in life through just being open to gaming and being open to new communities. I think.
How did all this? So you were getting like your feelers and started making connections in the gaming world in your area in Finland. And then you pick up and you move to America. How do you end up at K-Swiss?
Before that, I worked at another LA sneaker brand called Creative Recreation. And I spent, I think, 3 years there as their first graphic designer, first digital media producer, then graphic designer, and then global art director as well. And then my boss quit. 8 months later, he called, hey, you want to come work for K-Swiss? And the next week, I think he called on a Thursday. Then on the next Monday, our entire office got fired. And the owners decided to close up the brand. They were losing too much money, I think. And so everybody was let go that morning. And so I actually texted him from the HR meeting, like, I can actually take that interview tomorrow. And then, nice. You know, we had lunch, and I got the job I signed the papers an hour before I went to Finland. So every time I've lost a job, I've also gained a job within a week or 2 weeks, I think. And I've also always gone to Finland. It's always been somehow close to when I've had a trip to Finland. So I don't know if it's I know that I have the freedom that I could just, you know, one of the trips I go, if I don't feel like coming back, I could do my work from there, or I could find a job there the next day, work for a month, and then be like, I don't like this, I'm going to quit, and then jump on a plane and come back here. And all I would have to do is rent my room for Airbnb for a month, which isn't really hard to do in LA. So
yeah, that makes total sense.
I don't know if that messes with kind of how I behave the weeks leading up to me going on a trip.
It probably does. Subconsciously, maybe.
At least back then, because now I'm just more focused and kind of honed into where I want to be, what's the next steps, because I've already achieved pretty much all the dreams I set as a kid. Except become a pilot or astronaut. So everything else is pretty much done. All the things I never thought I would do, they're now done. So I had to find new ones. And there's still one really big one that's, I don't know if I'll ever achieve it. It's buying a house and having, you know, my family live there and being able to have like or buying a house for my mom is pretty much the big dream that drives everything. But I don't know if that's a reality in the next 20 years even. Maybe 20 years, yeah, but not within 20 years. I don't think so. Maybe.
I think you'll end up getting there before you realize it.
Probably. And but it's I don't know. There's just, you know, whenever I ask older people when they bought their houses or whatever, the prices were ridiculous. Like my dad's side, the grandparents, they bought houses in the 70s in America, and the prices were ridiculous back then.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Now, the same thing you bought for 50 grand then is like multiple millions. Like, how am I supposed to get multiple millions to buy anything? I don't want to deal with the bank that maybe one day I can pay all of this back and then I get the house. No, I want to be able to buy a house. Like, here's the money, the house is mine, not you own the house and I still kind of borrow it from you. Like, that doesn't work for me.
Yeah, that makes total sense. You want to buy it in cash, baby. You want to throw that down. Yeah.
I mean, then it's yours. And until then, the wealth I think I have in life, and I think that's one of the most helpful in terms of progressing in life, is the wealth of friends and what you get with your friends without asking for it. They're just things you have access to through your friends.
That's not how we think in America, bro. It's about how much shit you have. Right?
Actually, let me correct that a little bit, because there are people in America that think this way. I've learned these new thoughts in America from Americans because of the internet, and because now all of these positive voices are also getting pushed up and not just the bad things.
Yes.
And so I've learned these new ways of thinking, and of course, I guess starting to read, or I had a goal of I wanted to read 10 books in a year. I got to 9, and then the next year I found audiobooks and I got up to like 50. And so I'm trying to, I guess, find new ways of thinking and find new ways of doing what I do, and just trying to understand people as well, you know?
Well, I tell people this a lot. I 100% agree with you, because in my mind, if you're not going to try to be the best version of yourself, whatever that may be, reading books, listening to if you're not going to just continually to try to essentially, like a game, level up, get a better skill somewhere, what else is there to do?
Yeah.
There's nothing else to do. What are you going to do?
That's been one of my biggest fears in work, and that's why I've been very strict on, or here's one of my biggest fears, is going to work at an ad agency. Because when I'm in-house, I get to do everything. I get to have my hand in video, in photo, and web design or graphic design. So that way I never get bored, and my skills never die. I've been able to have a full 10 years as our art director, graphic designer, where I'm doing all of those skills all the time. So I get 10 years of someone else is funding my life by monthly work, right? And then freelance side hustles. But someone else is still paying for this stuff so that I can go learn on the job.
Get better. Yep.
And so that's, I think, amazing.
It's badass. All right, I got a couple rapid fire questions to wrap it up with.
Okay.
Okay, I want you just to spit out. This is something I want to do with every guest. You're the first one, so you're breaking the cherry. I got this idea.
Let's go, Finland number 1.
Finland number 1. Okay, test question. Who's the greatest hockey team in the world?
Finland.
It's Sweden, bro. I heard it was Sweden.
No,
I think you told
wrong.
me it was Sweden.
You heard wrong.
Okay, just playing. That was a bad joke. It's okay. I can edit it out. Actually, the thing is, I won't edit it out.
Finnish people have no...
I don't edit shit, by the way. So just so you know, I'll do the intro, and I'll try to maybe make the first 5 minutes tight so people don't bounce. But then
my DM's gonna be filled with Swedish people like, dude, why are you hating? Why are you hating? I'm like, dude, well, I mean, you know why I'm hating? You're from Sweden. We love you, but we also hate you. It's like America and Canada.
Sweden, definitely from the American perspective, Sweden gets more love, more headlines, more media.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of anything? Well, actually, Finland will show up in the most random things. Like now,
Black
you met
metal,
your first
bro.
Finnish person.
That's how I know you guys, is metal music.
We got great metal music. I can send you some if you want, but there's
yes, please,
Apocalyptica is huge. Him was huge. Ben Margera, loved him.
Yeah.
And then Nightwish was big for me.
Nightwish,
I loved Nightwish. They had a Gary Moore cover, Over the Hills and Far Away. And then there's Children of Bodom, which is massive. I think they're probably one of the biggest one, and I think Apocalyptica is the one with... They don't actually sing anything. They only play instruments, I think. So they're
you guys have a great
massive.
I know Finland. I mean, really, a lot of those countries in that same area are known, at least from American. There's a lot of good metal, symphonic metal, black metal. A lot of metal comes out of those. What is it with you guys? Because you all have Viking blood. Why do you guys all? Why is there so much metal?
We're not even Scandinavians. We're Nordics. They cut us out from that group because our language doesn't resemble any other language in the entire world except Hungarian. But no words. Yeah,
Finnish
no words
and
are similar.
Hungarian are closely related as far as the language goes.
Say again?
Did you say Finnish and Hungarian are related as a language?
No, but they sound similar.
They sound similar.
And
okay.
that's the only thing is if I was speaking Finnish here and there's a Hungarian person next to me speaking Hungarian to you, you'd be like, so you're from the Lord of the Rings, right? You're both elves. Got it? Okay, cool. That's how you'd look at that.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
I would not understand a single word they say, and vice versa. And so Finland's an oddball country between these Swedish, English grouped, languages. Swedish is pretty much the same as English. So if you wanted to learn Swedish, I could bet $100 that you could learn it in at least 2 years.
Interesting.
So there's so many words that are so similar that you could do it. Danish, no. Norwegian, not really. Icelandic, no. But if you speak Dutch, German, and Swedish, you could learn Danish because that's a mixture of those languages. And so they're all kind of mixed in between. But then you have Finns that are just oddballs in a sense. We have nothing to do with them in a way, at least language-wise. Culturally, pretty much the same.
What's your favorite? Well, we haven't talked about any single-player games. What is the best story in video games you've ever played? The best narrative?
Ooh. I don't know why the first thing that came up to mind was Duke Nukem 3D.
The best.
I don't know. It's probably not. Probably Pokemon in terms of story. Like, I loved Ash Ketchum's story. I love that. But since I brought up Duke Nukem, do you remember from your reaction, I think you know the game.
Definitely. Oh, okay. I know Duke Nukem. Definitely.
I think it's in the beginning of the game. You come in and you walk into the movie theater. I think that's where the game starts. And it's just a porn movie playing in the movie theater. And then an alien comes through the porn movie screen or something. And that's kind of where it kicks off.
For someone who was talking shit on the jock American, that game is like the living embodiment of that asshole American.
Or is it a ripoff of Arnold Schwarzenegger?
He's drinking booze, smoking cigs, swearing, strippers, porn, big guns, big muscles, loud. There's no such thing as class with Duke Nukem. Fuck class. No. This is America, baby. Give me a bazooka. I want to see some titties, and I want to blow an alien up.
There are some American shows that like MacGyver, but there's one show that people never really know that I bring up all the time is called Sledgehammer.
Ooh, I've never heard of that. Sledgehammer?
Yeah, look it up on YouTube. A TV show called Sledgehammer, and it's like that and Beavis and Butthead was this is what Americans are like, and then American Pie.
Oh, you know what? I just Googled it. I have seen like some of these thumbnails before.
The intro would stop with him like shooting the ceiling with his like massive revolver, and the ceiling drops on his head. He's like, I know what I'm doing. I'm like, all right.
Okay, so that's one of my
fire.
favorite answers of all time. Best narrative, Duke Nukem 3D. Hell yeah. Okay. Best. So we've already talked about. I know you played a lot of sports games. Pick one. Which game and which year? Best sports game of all time.
NHL 98?
98?
Nah. Oh, actually, yeah, but those are... Nah, I don't want to put that in my... I don't want to put that on record. Let me say NHL 1994.
Okay. That's the Genesis one you talked about earlier?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not even going to fact check it. I'm just going to let that be.
You're going to go, okay, I'll trust you.
Or actually, no, let me change it. Sorry.
Okay.
Mario Tennis on Game Boy.
Mario Tennis on Game Boy?
Yes.
You mean Virtual Boy? Was there Mario Tennis on Game Boy?
Okay, now I'm actually going to type. Because I need to
Mario
check
Tennis,
this.
Game
Yes,
Boy.
this is it. Game Boy Color, Mario Tennis.
Oh, you're right. I never saw this. How did I miss this?
I did play the other one too. It's just called Tennis.
I remember the tennis one. Yeah.
But Mario's the ref in this one. The Just Tennis one for Game Boy. This is the one. This is on the black and white one. Yeah.
Yes.
This is older. But the thing is that the cover has two guys playing, but Mario's the referee.
Mario's the ref. Yes, I remember this game.
There we go. That one, I only had that and Kirby, so it was either of those two.
That and what was the second game you had?
Kirby.
Oh yeah, Kirby. We talked about Kirby.
So yeah,
Damn.
those are the
Okay.
two games I had before I got Pokemon.
That's a pretty good. That was. I was expecting the NHL, but that's a good. That's a good pick. I do
I
remember this.
gotta
game.
give it to this because this was so cool. Just man, that was a good game.
Best multiplayer game
Of all time,
of all time. Opinion by you is set in stone. The internet shall never forget what you say. You'll be judged by this
Counter-Strike.
for the rest of your life.
Counter-Strike. Counter-Strike. 5-on-5. Once you die, you're out. I think Counter-Strike is the best competitive multiplayer game there is. And I think games are best when you have a competitive version of it. It makes it something to strive to. It gives it an edge. I don't like sports just for the hell of it. I don't like... I don't know. It's hard for me to do anything just for the hell of it, except if it's, something you're passionate, of course, about. But no, even then, I think there's always something in you. You always want to be better at it, or you want to win, or you want to, if you were fifth yesterday, now you want to be fourth. There's always something, that goes into improvement, and yeah. That makes any
Counter-Strike. Is
sense?
there a particular version? Is there a particular version of Counter-Strike that's like? I know I'm not super familiar with it, but I know there's a lot of different Counter-Strikes.
I would just give. I mean, the current version is the best for sure, hands down. They've made it such a great competitive platform, or like everything is so thought out. The systems are way better than they ever were, and I think as it currently stands, Counter-Strike is the best multiplayer game for sure.
Okay, best soundtrack in a game.
In a game?
Yes.
Oof. I don't know why. I'm just gonna go with intuition. Resident Evil 1.
Resident Evil 1.
I don't know why. My actual answer might be like Grand Theft Auto, one of them, or all of Grand Theft Auto should
Because
probably
they have
get that.
like the different radio stations and the different
Yeah,
artists.
so I would say GTA probably gets that, and I remember playing GTA on PlayStation 1 where you looked from above.
Yes.
And the best thing was you would grab a flamethrower and go flamethrow. There was a marching band, I think, that was always around somewhere, and you just flamethrower the kids.
You make it.
That's so bad.
Did you have issues with band nerds growing up or something?
No. I remember that one time at band camp, but
Did a
no.
snare drum player steal your girl? What's going on?
No, we didn't have bands in school.
You didn't?
We don't have we didn't
That's
have
kind of an American
that,
thing, actually.
like-
Yeah, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
that's an American thing. You either went to a music school or not, because everybody had band class. Like everybody had, like in high school, everybody took music. Like it's a thing that everybody has to go. The same as
Yes.
biology, you have to take music. And so, and we had it in elementary school too. Music is one of the basic things you study throughout all ages until you get to university or college.
Okay. Favorite video game character?
Yoshi.
Yoshi. He's a G, bro. He's a G. Super Mario World SNES. I think that's the first time Yoshi appeared in a Nintendo game. I think
so. Yeah,
it's definitely the first time I was exposed.
I think
to
I've seen
Yoshi.
some sort of like history of Nintendo or history of the characters. I just can't remember. They had a good story for Yoshi, but I don't know. There's something that Yoshi's just such a loyal companion. He's always there when you need him. He would even how they design him in games where when you need Yoshi, he would like run to you.
Yes.
Like it's just such a beautiful way of like it's kind of like a dog, and I think they played with that mental association of like how when you whistle your dog comes, Yoshi should also come that same way, and yeah, just wait.
Definitely.
Do you remember the Super Mario movies, like the live?
Oh, the 1990s live action movie?
Yeah.
Yes.
They didn't have Yoshi, did they?
Oh, they had Yoshi, but he was like a legit dinosaur.
Yeah, wasn't he like a kind of Flintstones type, like 90s wax dinosaur robot.
Yes,
like
bad special
thing.
effects. Yeah, that movie, like they tried to make it slightly more grounded for the movies, like the brothers. Instead of it going to like a different world, I think it was like underground or alien. That part I remember, but like they got their ability to jump from boots, like high tech boots.
Right?
That,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
had
Man, that
boosters
was a
on
good
them.
movie, dude.
It's a terrible movie, but a good movie because it was so terrible.
Yeah, but
Definitely.
it's one of those where like you just I'm such a fan of that whole series, and it had such a big impact on my life that even if it's a shitty movie, I'll watch it and appreciate all of it. The fact that someone tried, they should have tried many more times and made so much more. And it sucks that they're making like gaming movies, but then again, now they're making really, really good gaming movies or game related movies.
getting
So
better.
like cool,
It's getting
but
better.
still, like the technology is finally there where you can make some insane, like Jungle Book, or when they did Avatar, or just the effects on stuff is so insane. And Detective Pikachu was insane.
Dude,
I
that was
watched the
actually-
World of
I was gonna
Warcraft
bring
movie
that
that
up.
sucked, but
Pikachu was Detective Pikachu was surprisingly good.
yeah, and I gotta hand it to the actors. They did a great job. Not a big fan of the main actor, but was it Ryan Reynolds who was Pikachu?
Yes,
Great
Ryan
job.
Reynolds.
I'm happy they have Mew and Mewtwo. Wait, they had Mew in it too, right? Yeah, they did. Yeah. So I'm happy that was in there. I do remember watching the original Pokemon movies too, the cartoons, and so
Definitely.
I think I've seen every single Pokemon episode 3 times in a row from the original series.
That's a lot. That's a lot of Pokemon.
Yeah, but just the original series. I haven't like once
Yeah.
it went to the crazier stuff. I have no idea. I tried watching it once or twice. I'm like, nah, I'd rather watch One Piece or some other actual animes.
Definitely. Favorite console?
Wait, this PC isn't a console. Oh,
That
wow.
counts. Favorite platform to play games on, you could say.
PC.
PC.
It's just such a like for so cheap. I think you can get so much more than you can get with any console.
Definitely.
And so it's more open to everybody. It's a beautiful hobby for. It makes me so happy on Reddit to see like my age dads buy their daughters computers and help them, like they're excited on their front seat. They got like a $300 setup, a couple of different things, and they're going to go home with their dad and build a computer, or with their mom and build a computer. That is so cool. That's one of the craziest things I did as a kid, was like building a computer and like getting the parts and like, you know, upgrading it. Is that stuff is amazing. And I think that helps you later in life tremendously. The fact that you're interested about computers, software, and games as a kid will get you so much ahead later in life.
I'm glad you bring that up. I mean, I've had this thought, but I was having it as you were talking. I have 2 daughters, 4 and 5. And I think about like, what's the most efficient way where, like, because you can't force a kid to be something, right? All you can do is try to give them the best foundation that they can take to whatever they end up going. And like, I've thought about, okay, physically, like I want my kids to do gymnastics, because if they're in any kind of sport, gymnastics is a great foundation, especially as a little kid. Piano, I think creativity. That's the first thing I did. But then I was just thinking about computer, not just like letting my kids play games, but you said building, like teaching my kid how a computer works, how the parts come together, how like an OS works. This is Paint, even something as simple as Microsoft Paint. Just start planting those seeds.
All of these things.
Yes.
People don't know the basics, and that's what it blows my mind how little people know. Like keyboard shortcuts. This is how you change programs. You use the tab key and the Windows key, or the command and tab, and you switch programs. That's what you do. And then they see it once, they're like, oh, that's cool. And just in normal work life, I can see that all the time. And I try to teach people all the time these quick tips and tricks that make them so much more effective. And so many people just don't care. They don't want to be more effective. They don't want to learn new things, and they don't want to be told that their methods are wrong or outdated or slow. And like, I get it, but in a way, I'm also just disappointed. It's like, wait, but you want to learn, but when I'm giving you something that is working, but it could be working so much more frictionless, not better. just with less friction.
Less friction. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, and better workflows. Like, yes, you have a workflow that works, but you can't be that static that you can't adjust your workflow to something better.
Yes.
You know, you have to be open to improving, or else, like, go away. I don't care about you. Like, if you want to be static in life, great, but I don't want to associate myself with you because we most likely won't agree on anything.
Yeah, basic computer skills are something I've thought about recently. I think I agree with you that I've had a recent experience where it dawned on me how many people don't have basic computer skills, because I've always taken it for granted. I've been into computers or electronics since I was a kid, and then I got into computers early and learned same thing because of Damson, record label, websites, marketing. I learned how to do a lot of things decently, and how which then, secondly, by nature, by doing all those things, you also learn your way around a computer. You learn your way around Windows. You learn your way around OS X, whatever. And I have a friend that's really dope. He's my brother-in-law. He's one of the best people in the world, and he grew up in a really low-income neighborhood in Texas, and got his way out of that. Has a really solid job. Worked his way up in a manual labor job. Makes really good money, and he wants to expand. And he started asking me about computer stuff, and it dawned on me, he doesn't even understand the concept of a file system where your programs and I realized oh man, if he wants to move on to anything online, he's got to start all the way basically in kindergarten in it.
Yep.
And I was you know what, don't worry so much about what you try right now. Just do anything, because you have so many foundational skills to build. Just pick something that interests you on the computer and just do that, because it's going to force you to learn your way around a computer.
Putting it. I like that. I have trouble putting things into words that are nice to hear. I'm pretty blunt and direct with them, and that's a nicer way of putting it. And I feel like a lot of people are always so afraid of breaking things. Or you open a Photoshop file and oh no, I'm going to break it. Then make a copy of it. But that doesn't occur to you unless you've by mistake once dragged the file and be oh, I made a copy. Huh. That's cool. And you need to have, like you said, the foundational understanding of how things work, so that you can then implement those things into your normal life and make them better.
And if you want to do any sort of modern job outside of service, or even I can't
anything now.
Anything.
I can't come up with a single job where you don't need technology in a way, or you wouldn't be better with it. It doesn't matter. Let's do garbage pickup dude, guy, man, woman, they. Even them, you have a route, and let's say you have an iPad or an iPhone in the car. You need to see what the best route is. But if you don't know how technology works, you don't know how to pull up Google Maps or Waze on your iPad. People just don't know. They're oh, well, I could use it, but I'm just going to use the route I always use. Okay, well, that might not be the smartest way. And if it is, it might not be the smartest way for everybody. It might work for you, but everybody else in traffic might not enjoy it as much. And I just watched this big Vice documentary that I can send to you about the third industrial revolution, and how, what are these, the big trucks, long hauls?
Yes.
How they're using long hauls in Europe right now as data centers. They're driving around, they're driverless, and they'll have people with iPads doing data analysis at the same time. And the car companies are going to, because everybody's going to have a car, or no one wants to own a car anymore. It's all going to be shared and autonomous and all of this. So the car companies at some point, they're going to have to be, they're going to be the people who help you navigate. They're going to people who help you analyze that data from how traffic is working and how big cities are going, and how weather patterns affect stock, and the Internet of Things. Everything's connected. So it's people will need to have general knowledge of everything. You have to be a generalist to survive in the future. If you're a specialist, you're gonna be you can only do one thing.
Well, there's two schools of thoughts. There's I think in order to be a specialist in something and have that specialty, maximize the opportunities that come from that specialty, you need to have like whatever the equivalent of a high school level of generalist across the board. Because those supporting skills are going to help you make it in your specialty, especially if it's anything branding, online, music, whatever. Right? That's
you need
like
your
I said,
pillars.
definitely anything media. But and I've taken the generalist route, and this is something me and my business partner have gone back and forth about. You could make the argument, if you really want to make it, you got to go all in and become the best at something. That works for some people. The other path is people who become pretty good at a lot of things, and they're the only person that is that good at that particular set of skills, and you find a way to make those skills come together. And I think the generalist path is like more of a diversifying your stocks path. Maybe your potential cap isn't going to be as high as if you're the best Counter-Strike player in the world, but your probability of success is probably higher. Maybe your ceiling is lower, right? You're not going to become a multi-millionaire because you're not the best boxer in the world or the best NBA player in the world. But the failure rate for becoming the best in the world at something is astronomical. It's 99%. Whereas the failure rate for a generalist is probably a lot better. And that's kind of like the path I took, is like, I don't know if I have it to become the best. Because drums was like my first thing. I got really good at drums, and then I got into producing. I tried to do the music thing with Omar. We did a record label, and I made beats for like a solid decade. That's all I did. And I realized, honestly, I think a lot of people have to come to this conclusion, I don't have what it takes to make it, even though I'm putting in the hours. You want to put the hours into something that you have a pretty solid knack for, and there's a good, kind of rambling at this point, but
well, talent comes in too.
Talent comes in, yes.
You either have talent or you don't. I think.
Or you don't.
Like, if you have talent and you have a great work ethic, you'll be in the 0.1%. Like you're an elite. If your pillars of support are there for you when you need them, and you're facilitated the right way. And that's a good example is soccer players in Brazil, for example. There's the street kids who, if you take a kid from there and facilitate them you put them in a youth program when they're young, and they have the talent and they have the work ethic, and then you give them the best coaches, the best nutrition, and the best,
they will make it. Yeah,
they will make it. They'll be great. They might not be, the world's best player 10 years in a row, but they might be in the top 10, and their chances before that were like nothing almost. They had to, the path would have been way harder without the facilitation of it.
I think a generalist path is, higher probability of success, but maybe that you pay for that in an inverse, lower potential. Potentially. Well,
there's also,
but if you're an entrepreneur and you're a generalist and you put things together the right way, you can be wildly successful as well.
For sure. You still need to have the one thing that even though I'm a journalist as well, if people ask me, so what do you do? I either say I'm an art director or I'm a photographer. Now I pretty much say I'm an art director, or hopefully next I'll say I'm a creative director. But then what am I passionate about? What's my one thing that I pick over everything is photography, landscape photography. And so those are my two things. And something I was actually chatting with on Twitter with Chase Jarvis and Chris Doe. And Chase said, here's a tip: say or demonstrate you're focused on one thing, work on that narrative, and be a master in that craft. But pursue your interests broadly. That's the win. And that's my secret recipe. And that works sense. Is you have the one thing that you're aspiring to be, or your current dream you're working on, right? And then everything, all of those other skills are just supporting actors. And for me, that's super easy because I started with graphic design, and then I started with photography, and then I started with video. And then later on, once I got good enough at all those skills, that became art direction. Because art direction in practicality, most of the time, you're not actually directing shit. You're directing yourself to do the work.
Yes.
You just get a cool title. Then if you're lucky enough, you might work in a team. And if you're in the ad agency, you're probably one of 20 art directors, but when you're in-house, you're a graphic designer with a cool title. That's pretty much it.
Pretty much it. Okay,
Yeah.
Last question.
Okay.
If you had unlimited money and time, the Gaming Memories Prophet, gift you with, let's say, a budget of $100 million
Sweet.
to make any video game you want. What game would you make? And describe like the art style, the gameplay. Like what would be your magnum opus?
I'm gonna go with intuition directly. You ready?
Okay.
Battle Royale, but from the Marvel Disney universes where everything is available. So taking Super
sick.
Smash and mixing it with Disney, mixing everything in one as a battle royale and like a first-person shooter type game, but maybe it's such a wide game that you could also play that game as a Super Smash Bros. Fighting game, but also as a first-person shooter battle royale. Like it would be that dynamic that you could do that because there's so many characters that you could do it with.
I like that. Just essentially Smash Brothers or a battle royale, but in the Marvel Disney universe with all those characters.
And like I want to see a game where you have the Ninja Turtles fighting the Power Rangers.
Hell yeah, that would be dope.
And then all of a sudden, the Power Rangers pull a crazy move, and Alf shows up. And Alf is like, "Hey guys!" But then the other team got Towley, and then that's a fight.
Yeah, so it's just Smash Brothers across the entire universe.
Just everything in it, and that would be the ultimate open source game where all the game workers came together and the best battle royale makers made their part, the best fighting guys made their part, and they all brought their IPs together and made it free for everybody to play. And it's the one true game that then makes it into the Olympics because, get this, the esports will never make it to be an Olympic sport unless it's open source.
Yeah, that would be, I think in order to pull that off, you'd have to make a New World Order 1 government, take over all the IPs from the businesses.
You just need to, I know they know, that's probably everybody's dream anyways, from all of them. They just know that for legal reasons, because there's so many people holding the IPs, they think that because a lot of the things we're living through now is just changing a lot of things, and a lot will change even as we go forward. A lot of the old structures of how things work, especially in America with like checks and shit. This country is so outdated in a way compared to how a lot of countries are doing stuff, like South Korea or some of the Nordic countries. There's like in Estonia, you can be an Estonian citizen digitally, and you can vote from home with like a national card you put into your system, and you can vote from there. Like stuff like that is just gonna change the world, and I think IPs and rights and copyrights will somehow change as well. And I think that it'll hopefully make it so that everybody get paid a little bit more and the companies get paid a little bit less. The same as like on Spotify, I hope they pay the songwriters more because songwriters don't get paid enough. And so, but I think all of this is changing. And in our lifetime, we're going to see something super positive with distribution of wealth and distribution of access to being creative on a bigger platform. Let's go.
Okay, I lied. I have one more question. Okay, I thought of one more. So, I want, because this studio is sort of from your part of the world. What is your opinion of CD Projekt Red in the Witcher series?
I actually have nothing to do with the Witcher series at all. I've tried to just watch it even, and I've never played The Witcher. I watched one episode and it just didn't catch my eye at all.
Didn't catch you? The reason I asked is because they're not from Finland. Where's that?
Our biggest game is Max Payne and Angry Birds.
They're from
and Clash Royale.
Wasn't Max Payne developed by
Finnish
Remedy?
company, yeah.
They were based in Finland? I didn't know that.
So Max Payne is finished.
I did
That's
not
like
know
our
that.
pride and joy from like big games like that. And then Angry Birds came up. Angry Birds is of course insane.
Yes.
And then now we have Clash Royale, Clash of Clans, and then there's another Finnish Best Fiends.
Oh yeah, that's a big
is
mobile
also
game.
made by a Finnish company.
I don't know if Remedy, like how much of the original team that developed Max Payne is still under the same banner, but that studio just came out with a new game called Control.
I haven't. There
Have you
was
seen
some guy
anything
that
with it?
actually, I think Omar even met. We went to a party. A friend, he was visiting here, and he worked, I think, for Remedy. Because the only thing I remember from that, when I asked him where he works, he said, "Oh, the company that made Max Payne." I'm like, "Oh, okay, yeah, that's cool."
I think as an art director, I think Control that you can either play it if you want if you have PS4, or you can just go online and watch some gameplay. I think that game has the best overall aesthetic as far as visuals, effects, sound, type fonts, color grading, everything. It has the best style.
Is it better than God of
so,
War?
like, what's the word? Familiar but unique at the same time. I'd be interested, just as you as an art director, like
What
the
was the
game is
game called?
decent.
One
It's
more
a good
time?
game, but the art direction
Troll?
called Control.
Oh, Control.
Control, just the word control. Like maybe type Control gameplay or Remedy Control.
Damn, the ratings are good. 4.5 out of 5.
Yeah, it's
Publisher.
a really good game. But I think out of all the things that make that game good, the art direction is the best part.
Huh.
The highest, the highest level they reach, I think, is with their art direction. It's one of those things you'd have to kind of play over time to get a vibe, because the game's art direction is not
For
just
sure.
visuals, but the tone, the vibe, the world,
Yeah.
the lore. I mean, everything combined. But it all comes together in a way that I think I try to give people a recommendation when they're because I just know too much about games. I read about games all day. I think for you that might be something you get a little. Maybe it'll tingle your tip a little bit, give you a little bit of a creative.
I do have a
creative
PlayStation
juice.
4 on the counter over there, and I haven't yet powered up. I first
Do it.
built this
Do it.
the home studio setup here with my 3 screens, and so I have a tall
Oh,
monitor,
sick.
a wide one, and a 240 frame gaming one or hertz. And next up is building out the living room gaming station. So there's that, but the Switch is going to go up first. So there's that, and then I think I do want to get some nice single player games to the PlayStation. I already have Grand Theft Auto. I think it's Vice City. No, it has to be a newer one. Grand Theft Auto 5?
Vice City's a
I think-
PS2 game.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
That's the one that's
San-
LA.
It's
What's
not
it
San
freaking called?
Andreas.
Gosh, whatever it is. Yeah, the LA
Yeah.
one. No, that was
Got it,
LA,
yeah.
but on the PS2. Grand Theft Auto. Why am I not remembering?
It's just 5,
GTA
right?
It is
They
GTA
didn't have
5.
a name for it.
Whatever
It was
it
just
is.
a number, right?
I think maybe it's just GTA 5. So many people are probably yelling.
Yeah,
You dumbass.
I guess. Yeah, I've just spent so
That
much
should- you
time
should
on
know that.
Overwatch.
Yeah, that's a good game.
Counter-Strike, and now Call of Duty. So just, and then if I'm on console, I've been on my Nintendo Switch, and so that's pretty much it. I just haven't had any interest for the PlayStation.
Well, if you should ever feel like trying something new, I would recommend trying out Control. Tell people where they can find you online, where they can find you on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter,
Sure.
all that shit. I'll put
So
links in the
you can
description
find
as
me
well.
on santifox.gallery. That's my website that I'm always building on and trying to get my stuff there, and just my place to have fun at. Then on social, you can find me on every channel as I am Santi Fox. And then on YouTube, I think it's just Santi Fox, and I'm struggling to get started with YouTube, but that's a small pun intended for what kind of a show I'm actually trying to build on YouTube. And so I've spoken it into existence. So it's something I'm definitely working on. And now since I moved, I'm rebuilding everything here. So I'm super excited to hopefully gather the courage to start teaching on YouTube and hopefully bringing new skills for people and really starting with the basics and doing it for my friends. Really, I think that's something I can do immediately. And if people like it on YouTube, great. If it helped you, for example, in something you've tried to figure out, great. That makes me even happier.
Awesome. Well, I am Santi Fox, everywhere on social, badass Counter-Strike player. If you have seen anything that was dope that came from K-Swiss the last few years, you can thank him for it looking dope, for it being dope. Give him all the street cred. Thanks again for Omar for linking us up. It was a grand ass time.